Welcome to the Heart of the City Regina Downtown podcast series. I will be your host, Dominika Denev, Manager of Marketing and Communications for Regina Downtown Business Improvement District. Today we are joined by Lynn Armstrong, entrepreneur and owner of Zoe, located at 1928 12th Avenue in downtown Regina. Thank you for joining us today, Lynn.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Anytime. How's your day been going?
It's been good. It's been busy, lots of planning to do and lots of things to think about.
Well, I appreciate you making the time to jump on the podcast and kind of share your story today with us.
Well, it's going to be awesome. I'm always happy to talk about my business.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in then and just kind of let the listeners know a little bit about yourself as an entrepreneur and your business, Zoe.
Okay. Well, Zoe is downtown on 12th Avenue, 1928 12th, and I've been downtown since August 2018. Zoe is a reinvention of the former Zoe's boutique, which really came to life over 30 years ago, and I became the owner of it February 2016. So since then, it's been through. I call it a reinvention, but really a transformation from the former Zoe's boutique to a lifestyle place called Zoe, which means life.
So awesome. I was just going to say, what kind of products do you guys sell there and what do you offer to your clients?
Well, it's predominantly a shoe store. I would say it's 90% shoes. So we sell premium brands that are not easy to acquire through online means, off of eBay and those kinds of places. But we sell leading brands, so Fluvog, Camper, Chimahara, Vic Maddie. We also sell some Michael Kors and Vince Camuto, but we look for brands that have a world impact that people around the world are interested in. And then on the clothing side, we sell all Canadian independent. So Nadia Toto from Quebec. We sell Sarah Armstrong, who is my daughter, but she is obviously from Regina, living and working in Vancouver. And then on the jewelry side and object side, we sell Canadian made and designed jewelry, hats, and other pieces. So we have a really strong focus on Canadian independent and sustainable in the context of sustainable economies in Canada. That's what we try to shoot for.
Wonderful. Now, I know you were going to join us today and kind of give a brief summary of how you've had to change your business model and pivot over the last month and some since the provincial state of emergency. So would you mind kind of elaborating and sharing what your focus has been lately?
Sure. Well, when this all began to become obvious that it wasn't going to be safe to be open, the first thing that we did was I made an announcement that we would be going to by appointment only in order to make sure that we could, clean before the customer and after, and also make sure that that customer was completely safe while he or she's in the store. So we did that, and then the government just shut us all down. So then we had to close our doors. But in doing that, I've also had an online store since July 2017. So I started promoting the online store a lot more and also offering curbside pickup and delivery, contactless delivery in the city. Plus online, I've been doing free shipping on orders over $200 across Canada. So it's an adjustment because you know what? It's funny because before this, we thought that everything was all about online shopping, but it's really not. This has shown me that we are definitely a face-to-face business with an online store that's there for convenience, essentially.
Right. And what kind of changes have you seen then too with the products that you sell? Because if you are primarily a shoe store, how does that affect your business with being only like online shopping or just through Facebook or Instagram?
Well, it definitely makes it more competitive because in the world of retail, we are all competing with our suppliers all the time because they all have their online vehicles also. So it makes it much more difficult because we are competing in the open world, in the open market on the same product. And so the bigger the company, the more money they have to invest in SEO, search engine optimization, and the more likely they are to be seen everywhere. So for me, what I did is I really began to hone in on my community and on my customers, so that they would be at least tied into the story of what I was trying to tell, and to stay top of mind as much as possible.
Well, and I have to say, like, we follow your Instagram. I follow you personally and through the bid. And you are, I would say, one of our really strong social media users when it comes to a member downtown. And I don't know if you just want to share some of your maybe techniques or the style of how you like to present yourself through social media and tell your story.
Sure. Well, to me, social media is a great platform to communicate brand, who you are, what you're about. And I think it's a platform to have a conversation, and to think of it as a storytelling platform. Like, my social media tends not to focus heavily on, oh, buy this pair of shoes. Like, sometimes I promote a pair of shoes or something, but it tends more to tell the story of that shoe. It'll tell the story of the designer. It'll tell the story of what it was inspired by. It will tell the story of what makes it beautiful or special. And so I try to use social media more as a story form. And I'm a blogger also, so I like to think of it as mini blogs. And I always think, like, if people are going to be like on my page reading my posts, I want them to be entertained. I want them to be inspired. I want them to learn something. And I want them, to feel good afterward, because that's really what it's about. It is a form of entertainment, but it's a form of positive engagement also. It's no different than if they walked into my store. I would talk to them exactly the same way. I would tell them about the designer. I would tell them about the product. I would tell them about why I chose it, why it's important, why I think it's special. I would tell them all those things in the store. So I use my platform, my social media platform, to communicate that also.
And I think too, there's so much power with using that, and really it doesn't cost anything, right? Like, those platforms are free unless you do any sort of boosting or, anything like that. But really the tools are there for people to be able to utilize. And I just think that personally, when I look at your page and just how well you do, you eat, breathe, and walk and talk the brand, right? Like, you are Zoe. People know you around the community. And I just think it's truly amazing, just the effort that you put into it, and really being mindful and setting like your intention of your posts behind it. Like, I see a lot of value in everything that you do post. And I think it's truly beautiful when you look at it. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah. And I just love to, like, if anyone who's listening may have joined Lynn and I, Lynn's also been joining on Feel Good Fridays, which are our short little coffee break discussions on Fridays at 1:00, where we bring in a special guest, one of our downtown members, and just have like a feel good conversation, right? Ease ourselves into the weekend. And last weekend, Lynn joined me and we had a little dance party after she had some motivational insights to share with us. And she'll be joining again this following Friday. And I look forward to hearing more of your positivity and just how you bring your brand to life. And, it shows through all the platforms that you use and just as a person. So I think it's truly unique. And I think it's definitely a positive that people should notice and kind of take note of. I definitely do. So I appreciate that.
Nice. I think that it is, like, my background is communications and strategy and journalism. So I think I'm a natural storyteller. That's just how I do things. And so in that way, it doesn't cost anything because I have those skills, and unless you boost posts, like you said. Mm-hmm. But, I think I do think it's an art form.
Absolutely. Yep. And it takes time, right? Like, it's not, because you are intentional and have the background and knowledge about the products and just want to share your story, it's not just like a post might take you a second, right? Like you're putting a lot of thought into it, and you may be quicker at it because you truly live your brand, but it does take a lot of thought, right? It doesn't just happen on its own, right? And and I really like the fact that those platforms aren't really meant to be always just advertising, right? Then you just kind of lose, I would feel, interest sometimes, because there's different platforms to use for advertising, like your online shopping or your website, right? Or things like that. But I think it's really a good story, your brand, and how you utilize the platforms to the advantages that they should be used for, right? So we keep talking about your amazing social media. Did you want to share with the listeners where they can follow along with Zoe?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at Zoe Shoes, 2 S's in the middle. So ZOESSHOES_shop. That's on Instagram. And on Facebook, it's Zoe Shoes Plus Objects. Sometimes I have different content between those two platforms. And then, of course, my website, which is zoeshoes.com, ZOESSHOES. And on my website, I have blogs. I have several blogs on my website too. So it's different content there too. So it's a bit of an ongoing story. It's shaping all the time. But I have to say, when I first started the store and when I was new to the business and the business was new to me, growing up with a business is really about learning what the business is, what the brand is, what the voice is. And it wasn't until I could hear the voice of Zoe in my head, which I do hear the voice of Zoe in my head, then once I could hear what Zoe would say and not me, and then it becomes a rhythm, but it takes time. You have to really learn to listen to how does your business as a brand interact with the world? What does it stand for? Why do people care about it? Why do you care about it? Everything has a voice. You have to learn to hear it. And I think that's the art of social media and communication in general.
I agree. Do you have any other final thoughts or advice you want to add? Like, you've given so much already, but if there's anything else you want to kind of end your podcast on?
Well, I would say in terms of brand, and particularly going forward with the COVID situation that we're all dealing with, I think it's a great, it's scary. It's very scary. But on the other hand, I have pivoted with my store. Like this will be my fourth pivot, which is maybe a podcast in itself. But we don't get to choose the environment. Sometimes the environment happens. So we have to ask ourselves, what is our why? And if that why is still relevant, then the how is just another question, And I know that at first I was really, we're all disappointed by the way COVID is. COVID is scary. And we all have to adjust, and no one really enjoys adjusting to something like a pandemic virus because it's scary. But we also, our businesses are living, breathing things also. And so we have to really think about what's going to give the business the best chance of survival. How can we make it as healthy as possible in this situation? And so that's how I look at it.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate all your advice. And as I mentioned, Lynn will be coming back on with us on the BIDS Instagram to do Instagram Lives on the Feel Good Fridays. And I do feel Lynn and I have discussed her coming back on the podcast when it comes closer to the Reopen Saskatchewan plan, and when retail businesses do decide they are going to open and when they can open. Related to that discussion, she has some really good insights about how she's going to move forward with her brand, and again, talking about her story. So I look forward to having you on the podcast again with a bit more information to share with other local businesses and retailers in general about just the protocols that you're going to put in place with your store. So I look forward to that. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lynn, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a nice one, and everyone out there.